Boo! Hello, I'm Colin from Gogo's Homebrew. Today I'm going to be talking about the subclasses included in the new Ravenloft campaign module that came out a month or so ago called Ravenloft The Horrors Within, which came with 6 new subclasses, 4 of which are returning subclasses, 2 of which are brand new. I'm going to be going through each of them, reviewing them, giving them all a rating, and then at the very end I'll give a little roundup and talk about how they all compare to each other and other subclasses. If you like my stuff and you want to see more D&D stuff, particularly subclasses, because that's what I've made the most, you should go over to my Patreon and check it out. A lot of the stuff is free, and there's some extra bonus goodies if you want to pay me money as well. Okay, thank you. Okay, to start off with, we're going to be talking about the Reanimator Artificer. Now, this is a pretty interesting subclass. I am a big fan of it thematically. It is basically Frankenstein. If you want to hear more about Frankenstein, you can listen to my Golem podcast, but if not, essentially Victor Frankenstein is a classic horror character who created a monster, and this Artificer subclass lets you do the same thing. You start off with a nifty little spell list. You can cast Spare the Dying on your allies to send a jolt of electricity through them and revive them, just like what Victor Frankenstein did to his monster. And you can also create a companion. The companion is the bread and butter of this subclass. It's pretty standard for an Artificer companion. It's very similar to the one that you get in Battlesmith, with a little exception that it explodes when it dies. It also scales up with your level, so the more Artificer levels you have, the better it will become. At 5th level, you can cause it to either deal more damage or to become an Arcane Conduit, which basically means that you can cast spells through it, which I quite like. It's a creature of magic. It stands to reason that you should also be able to use it as a conduit for your own magic. 9th level, you get more options to give it when you create it, so you can make it either bloated, gaunt, or moist. Which, I mean, I take great issue with their choice of words for these features, but basically bloated makes it big, lets you push people around with it. Gaunt makes it a little creepy thing that skitters around and climbs walls and stuff. And moist, which I hate that so much. Why couldn't they call it aquatic or something? But moist basically gives it a swim speed and lets you deal acid damage when it attacks people. 15th level gives you some pretty cool stuff. You get to cast Raise Dead once per rest, you get to give your companion more modifications, and you also get to give it something called Life Transfer, where you can take all of its hit points, give them to yourself, and then make it explode. It's a total dick move, but if you want to use your companion as a bomb, as opposed to a companion, then I kind of like it. It's an evil subclass. It deserves to have evil features. Overall, I am a huge fan of this subclass. I think it's really thematic. I think it's cool. Subclasses that can create companions like this are kind of tricky to balance, so I don't know how strong it will necessarily be. But for thematic flavor alone, I think this is a really good subclass. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's really similar to a subclass I made a few years ago, the Circle of the Abomination Druid, which you can see over on my Patreon. Basically, that was the same thing. It gave you a companion that you could make, and it gave you a lot of features to choose from to give that companion, albeit a lot more features than this subclass gives you. This subclass, by the end, you only have 5 strange modifications to choose from, and you get 3 of them. There's not a lot of variety. I would definitely like more variety, but that's my only real qualm with this subclass. I think it's very flavorful. I think it's very cool, and I think it works really well for a Ravenloft subclass, considering Ravenloft is inspired by Gothic horror and it's ripping off Frankenstein. Okay, next up we have the Hollow Warden Ranger. This is basically a ranger that protects the wild parts of the worlds that might have been overrun by evil creatures, and through being exposed to those evil environments can turn themselves into something pretty horrifying. So at third level, you get your Wrath of the Wild, which basically is a transformation. It's kind of up to you what it looks like, but it gives you bonus to your AC, lets you make more attacks as reactions, and it also lets you frighten creatures around you. I think it's kind of vague, and I think the features are very combat focused as opposed to flavor focused. So I don't really love it, to be honest. Then at 7th level, you get Hungering Might, which lets you add your Constitution modifier to your Wisdom saves, and then also while you're transformed. And you hit a creature with an attack and you're bloodied, aka have half hit points or less, you can regain some hit points. I don't think it's very flavorful or strong, this feature. I kind of hate it, to be honest. 11th level is a bit more flavorful, but again, this is all still going to be completely combat focused. When a creature fails against your Frighten, it can't regain hit points or take reactions. And then also when you hit a creature, you get to activate some mastery properties on it. And then finally at 15th level, you can deal extra damage to frightened creatures. You can heal yourself once when you're reduced to 0 hit points while transformed. And you have immunity to exhaustion. This is a funny subclass to review because in terms of flavor, the flavor's quite vague. It's just kind of like you're this horrific forest entity. I'm imagining kind of like a pagan monster with like antlers and like a deer skull for a head. I think that's kind of what they're going for, but all of the features are just quite generic combat features. I don't think there's anything that really makes this subclass stand out or very cool, to be brutally honest. I think there's definitely cool things you can do with it, though. Like, I don't think this is a bad subclass. I just think it's kind of forgettable. For that reason, I'm probably just going to give it a 5 out of 10. Very middle of the road subclass. Like, again, you could do cool things with this. You could definitely build a cool character with this, but it's going to be up to you as opposed to the subclass. And then I feel like something with like the Reanimator that we just looked at, you're cool no matter what with that subclass, but this one you kind of need to work for it. Okay, those were our 2 new subclasses. We're now on to the returning subclasses with the Undead Patron Warlock. This subclass is weirdly really similar to the Ranger one we looked at. It revolves around a transformation that you can do. When you transform, you can't be frightened, you can frighten other creatures, and you gain some temporary hit points. Again, it kind of suffers from the same problem as the Ranger one, though, where it's kind of vague what you're exactly transforming into. Your patron is an undead, right? That's all you're really told. And then you're told, oh, you gain some hit points and you're very frightening. And the rest is kind of up to you. 6th level, you do kind of begin to step away from the Ranger subclass a bit. You get to take less necrotic damage and deal necrotic damage, and then also you can't gain exhaustion levels from starving or dehydration or suffocating, which is pretty cool. It's basically just a better version of what the Ranger subclass got with the immunity to exhaustion all the way at 15th level, as opposed to this, which gives you not the same thing, but a very similar thing at 6th level. Oh, you don't need to sleep, and magic can't put you to sleep as well. So overall, I actually think I think that's better than what the Ranger got at 15th level. But you're getting it at 6th level on top of like other parts of the feature as well. Like, yeah, it's really good. 10th level, guess what? When you die, you can return with hit points, just like the Ranger subclass. Feels like there's a lot of overlap in these subclasses. The difference with this one is that when you die and return with more hit points, you also explode in a burst of necrotic energy. So I feel like this subclass doesn't really get that flavorful, except for 6th level and 14th level. So at 14th level, you can resist more damage, whatever. You also gain a fly speed and can hover around like a ghost, and you can move through creatures and objects, which is pretty cool. You can also cast Conjuration and Necromancy spells without material components. Yeah, both those things are really flavorful and cool. Overall, the subclass is a lot more flavorful than the Ranger one, I think. It's also stealing a lot of ideas from it. Having both of those subclasses in the same book is kind of crazy. Yeah, I don't know, it just feels like they could have done more with this. Undead in D&D are very cool, very iconic, come in a lot of different varieties. and yet instead of giving us a taste of all those different varieties like revenants and vampires, zombies or whatever, you kind of just went the opposite direction and instead made it a really kind of just generic one size fits all undead, which I'm not a huge fan of. But at least, like I say, it gets very cool, flavorful features at 6th and 14th levels, which definitely does put it above the Ranger one. And also just the flavor in general, it's a lot more clear what this subclass is going for as opposed to the Ranger one. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. Would not be my Warlock subclass of choice unless I was very adamant about doing something horror-themed. But even then, I feel like going for the Great Old One is probably cooler. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. Oh, another thing I want to add about the Warlock patron. This is literally the setting for Strad von Zarovich, one of the most iconic, cool characters in D&D, a immensely powerful vampire lord. The implication is that if you were going to work for Strad von Zarovich, this is probably the subclass you would take. And given that, I think that's really lame. Have the undead patron subclass be so generic and flavorless. Ugh. I don't know. No, you know what? I'm bumping it down. It's now 6.5. Okay, next up we're going to Rogue. This is the Phantom subclass, another returning one, and this one hits quite close to home for me because I played a Phantom Rogue in one of my longer campaigns. I should explain. This Rogue subclass is basically a rogue who is kind of in touch with the spirits of the dead. At 3rd level, they get their wills from the grave, which basically lets them do a little bit of extra sneak attack, which basically lets them do a little bit of their sneak attack damage to an additional creature when they hit. Also gives them proficiency in a skill or a tool that they don't usually have once per rest. Implication kind of being that the dead spirits are teaching you how to use it, but then for some reason you just immediately forget that knowledge. Maybe the implication is that you're rather being possessed, but if you're being possessed, then you should get more than just proficiency in a single skill or tool. I don't know. At 9th level, when a creature dies, you can take a token from it, and that token is essentially trapping its soul, and then you can destroy the token to deal extra damage to a creature, but while you have one, you gain advantage on death saves, and then also you can cast Augury, the spell that kind of lets the DM subtly let you know whether you're about to make a really stupid decision or not. Very flavorful, to be honest. I do like it. And then you can also cast Speak with Dead once per rest, and if you have a soul trinket, you can cast Speak with Dead on the trinket as opposed to a corpse. I think overall level 9 is very flavorful and very cool, and I think all of that works really well for what the subclass is going for. 13th level, you get to move like a ghost. Once again, we're taking things from other subclasses because that's what the Warlock subclass we just talked about could also do around this level. But this is basically just a better version of it. And then finally, 17th level, you get Death's Friend, which gives you more damage and gives you a free soul trinket if you don't have one. Whose soul is that? I don't know. You've just got someone's soul now. Good job. That's just your soul now. Enjoy it. Overall, this is a really mixed subclass. I like the ghostly flying around, but I don't love it. Yeah, I think you can make this a very grounded, non-supernatural subclass until you start flying around like a ghost, and then that just goes out the window entirely. I really like all the stuff with the soul trinkets. I think being able to, deal extra damage to creatures and being more resistant to dying while having one, and then kind of getting messages from beyond the grave. I think that's all very flavorful and very cool. Unfortunately, I think the rest of the features other than level 9 are not very flavorful and cool. Combat-wise though, don't get me wrong, being able to use your sneak attack more than once a turn in any form is huge for Rogue. That gives you so much extra damage potential. I'm going to give this one a 5 as well, 5 out of 10. It's only getting 5 because I really like the level 9 feature so much, to be honest. Up next, we have the Grave Cleric, which was a big favourite in original 5e when it came out. So the Grave Cleric, it really works well for Cleric, I think, as especially as like a quote-unquote evil subclass. Works for a class like Cleric to have something that is all about death. You know, in all religions across the world, respecting the dead and tending to them and healing people that's always been the job of a priest. But let's talk about the actual mechanics of the subclass. So, you can deal necrotic damage, and you also gain Spare the Dying as a bonus action, and... My headphones died. Where was I? You can cast Spare the Dying as a bonus action, which is immense, and also when you roll for restoring hit points to another creature, you don't need to roll, you just get the maximum amount. All of this is incredibly strong, and I also love the juxtaposition between having the damaging feature be all about dealing necrotic damage and then having the defensive feature be all about healing creatures and bringing them back from death. Works great thematically. You can also use your channel divinity to curse a creature, basically telling the creature that it's going to die soon. If you curse that creature by saying, I sentence you to death, essentially, and then don't actually kill it, kind of undermines your authority as a Grave Cleric pretty significantly, I think. 6th level, you get another very flavorful, cool feature called Sentinel at Death's Door. Basically, when a creature hits an ally that is bloodied, you can half the damage. And also, if it's a crit, you can totally negate the effects of the crit. And you can do that multiple times per rest. Again, incredibly strong and incredibly flavorful. Jumping all the way up to 17th level, you get Enhanced Necromancy. Basically lets you, if you cast a Necromancy spell or a spell from your subclass spell table, you can make it target 2 creatures instead of 1. Now there is restrictions on this. It needs to be a spell of 5th level or lower, and if it has material components, you need to pay them. But if you don't understand why this is an incredible feature, this could theoretically let you cast Revivify or something that restores a creature to life on 2 creatures at once. And yes, those are very costly spells, and you would still need to pay that money twice. But in a fight, being able to revive 2 allies at once is such a game-changing ability to have. You also get your Keeper of Souls, which lets you heal a creature after another creature dies. You can only do it a limited amount of times, but I mean, it works, it's flavorful enough. So overall, I love this subclass, and I do think it is probably the best subclass in this book. I'm a huge fan of Reanimator, especially because Reanimator is brand new, but I do think objectively Grave Cleric is better. It's easily one of the strongest Cleric subclasses mechanically. I don't think it delves into being overpowered though either, because it's only good at what it's good at. Saving creatures and dooming them to death. It's not just like an all-round strong subclass, it's very situationally strong. But it's absolutely brimming with flavor. Like, all of these features are, in addition to being really strong, so well thought out and flavorful. And for that reason, I am going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think the only things keeping it back from the 10 out of 10 is I'm not a huge fan of Path to the Grave, the Channel Divinity, and I feel like the capstone, Keeper of Souls, is kind of eh. Everything else is just so cool and so strong, and I would really love to play this subclass at some point. Okay, on to our final subclass, which is Shadow Sorcery. Shadow Sorcery is another returning subclass. 3rd level, in addition to some extra spells, you get Superior Dark Vision, as well as Blind Sight, which is huge. Blind Sight, basically, if you don't know, lets you see anything in its radius. If you're next to an invisible creature, you can see that invisible creature, which is understandably huge. And then what else you get at 3rd level? That's right, the ability to revive yourself if you drop to 0 hit points, which means 3 of the 6 subclasses in this book have that ability. Except this one is just objectively weaker. You do get it at a lower level, don't get me wrong, but also you need to succeed on a saving throw for its benefits to even function. You're basically getting a get out of jail free card that only has a percentage chance of working. Like, a get out of jail free card should be something that's really valuable, and yet for this subclass is not. At 6th level, you can summon a Shadow Hound to help you in battle, which I guess is cool. I kind of wish it wasn't restricted to being a shadowy hound, but I understand that there is some kind of lore to do with the Shadowfell. But the spell that you're getting to do this is Summon Beast, which lets you kind of customize the look and feel of your beast. And I don't know why this feature isn't letting you also do that. Like, what if I want to make a Shadow Sorcerer who creates shadow dinosaurs? I should be able to do that. In fact, I want to do that. That's really cool. Let me make shadow dinosaurs. Up at 14th level, you get Shadow Walk, giving you the ability to teleport in dim light and darkness. And you can just do that infinitely. Really, really strong. Especially for a squishy class like Sorcerer, having the ability to just teleport up to 120 feet whenever you want as a bonus action is immensely huge. It is locked behind 14th level, so there, but still. And then we have 18th level, where you gain another transformation. Not only is it another transformation, it's a transformation that lets you move through creatures and objects as if you were a ghost, meaning that 3 of the 6 subclasses in this book also give you that ability. You also gain resistance to damage, but whatever. I don't know, I think this is a really weak capstone feature and I'm not a huge fan of it. Overall, I think the subclass does have things going for it. I think it can be powerful, but I think a lot of the features that are here are too weak, and I think a lot of the features that aren't weak aren't flavorful enough. I'm not a huge fan of this. I think just because I really don't like the capstone feature at level 18, I am only going to give this a 4 out of 10. Sorry, Shadow Sorcerers, I know you're all really cool and edgy, so I daren't upset you, but I just think there was a lot more potential here that wasn't utilized. Okay, so it's a couple of days since I recorded the rest of that video. I took a step back, did some more thinking, and I'm going to be doing my final ratings now. I've adjusted some of the ratings slightly, just having looked at the subclasses again for fresh mindset. So I'm going to be starting from the bottom and going up. So at the bottom, Shadow Sorcery. I don't think it's necessarily a bad subclass, I just think it's really boring. I think this is like the most boring interpretation of someone who controls shadows that you could possibly come up with. I don't think it's that weak, I don't think it's that powerful either. It's just not very interesting, and that's why it's so low. After that, with a 5, is going to be the Hollow Warden. Again, it's not a bad subclass, and it is more interesting than Shadow Sorcery, but like I was saying earlier, I feel like it struggles a bit to really find what it wants to be and kind of makes you as a player work to make it cool. Because all of the features are just quite generic combat features. After that, we're going to have the Undead Patron for Warlock with a 6 out of 10. I think this is more interesting than something like Hollow Warden, but I still think there's a lot of untapped potential. And like I said earlier, the fact that this is the setting for Strad von Zarovich, and this is your Undead Patron, it's definitely lackluster. It needs. I just think there's more interesting things that you could do with this. I would love for example, having options to choose from different features depending on what kind of undead your patron is. Like you get X if it's a vampire or Y if it's a lich, for example. Above that, we are putting the Phantom Rogue with a 7 out of 10. I think I rated it lower than that before, but I've done some thinking, and honestly, it's not nearly as bad of a subclass as I was saying there initially. It's just, having played it, I found it quite lackluster, but there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, and there's a lot of really creative features that I've not seen in any other subclass, so I think it is a 7 out of 10. Again, it is, some of the features are flavor-wise a bit confusing, but it's really not that egregiously bad. I do think it's a 7 out of 10. Okay, and then we're hopping all the way up to 9 out of 10 with the Reanimator Artificer. This is getting bumped up to 9 because reading it again, this is just so brimming with flavor. It's so cool. It seems really strong, both in combat and out of combat, and just fun. It just seems really fun. Like, this is, having looked at the other Artificer subclasses as well, this is just the most fun looking one by far. I really love this idea, and it works perfectly for the Ravenloft setting as well. And then, of course, at the top, we have the Grave Cleric with a 9.5 because it works for Ravenloft, being all about death. It works for Cleric, being not necessarily an evil subclass at all, but more of just sort of a morally ambiguous one that still has very good ties to religion. It has so many strong features, but again, they're situationally strong features. They're not just like you're massively overpowered all the time. You have these moments where you will feel like the biggest badass ever. It's all the features are really flavorful, but most of the features are really creative as well. Again, there's a lot of features in this that I've not seen in any other subclass. My only real complaint with it that is keeping it from being a 10 out of 10 would probably be the fact that it is just there's a little bit too much going on. I think like they could take a couple of things out of this subclass. It'd be a bit neater. It would be a bit easier to understand. But it's barely a complaint. Pretty close to perfect. Grave Domain. Okay, so those are my final ratings. This was a very different kind of video for me to make. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you want more videos like this, and if you do want more videos like this, give me ideas for them. Oh, and if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please just take a second to subscribe, because it does actually matter quite a lot for the success of my channel. Way more than I think people realize. So if you're not subscribed, I promise I won't be spamming your fucking subscription feed or anything. It would really mean a lot to me. Alright, I'm going to be returning to my tomb and getting some rest. Don't let the bloodsuckers bite. Good night.